Showcase. I am Mark Stedman, Vice President of Information Technology at Wycliffe Associates. And joining me today in the bungalow, our on-campus studio here in sunny Orlando, Florida, is Glenn Oliver, our team's project manager and all-around great guy.
And joining us, returning today, is Travis Wright, our AI Task Force Coordinator. And we actually have a special scenario. So this week we're actually celebrating a hackathon, which is why Travis has been able to join us. And we'll actually be able to talk to him hopefully several times this week, even on camera. And we have a live studio audience today.
We do have a live studio audience. I wasn't sure if we would mention them, but we are joined today by Petya Downey, our Scripture Accessibility Coordinator, Chuck Leash, our Tech Advancement Extraordinaire. I don't know what your actual title is, Chuck, and Mike Rodriguez. So great to have you guys in the studio. Thanks for being here, even if you're off campus or off camera.
So we're going to be talking a lot about AI this week.
That's right.
I think a lot of people are interested. It's constantly in people's conversations. It's in the news. You can't avoid it. And we have, I think, even mentioned it a little bit before, but we thought we'd take a moment and drill down. But I think, well, Travis, what are we going to be talking about today?
We've developed an organizational policy for a set of policies for how we want to implement AI and how we want to think about it Christianly. So we'll talk about that today.
Yeah, so one of the outcomes for our AI task force that we've been working on for about 9 months now, 10 months now, I think, on our task force, has been to deliver what we are calling an AI position for Wycliffe Associates to adopt. It's not really policies yet, it's a position, and the difference between those two things is what we've outlined is a framework for how WA thinks about AI and intends to engage it. Now, each individual division will be developing policies. Policies are kind of a limit of like, hey, we will do these things and we will not do these things. So we're still in the process of developing policies. Those things will end up in our handbooks and whatnot. But the position has now been fully adopted by the WA executive team after some really good and insightful discussions. So the task force created the position, put that forward and presented that to the executive team, and then the executive team agreed, along with our CEO Simon, that that was the right place for WA to be. So I'd like to show you where to find the position paper if you're interested. You can also get it by email if you want or whatever. And then I think we'll take a few minutes to talk that down. And by talking it down, I mean we will talk from the top of the document to the bottom.
Oh!
All right. So the place to get the position paper, and actually the place to get all of the work that your AI task force has done so far, is to visit BibleInEveryLanguage.org. I'm sure that's everybody's favorite site to check each morning before they wake up. But in case it's not and you're not used to it, BibleInEveryLanguage.org is the place where you can see all of the translation work that's been completed and uploaded. So anybody who's ever curious about whether a given language has any translation work or not in the WA world can check on Bible in Every Language. If you come over to Church-Owned Bible Translation, you will see a artificial intelligence section. The AI section outlines some of the work that we've done, kind of the purposes and ethical guidelines and whatnot, and then there's additional reading down here where we have listed all of the documents that we've published about the work we've done. The newest one is the Church-Owned Artificial Intelligence Position Paper. So click on Read More and you will be given a PDF that has that position paper. Now you're probably thinking to yourself, man, I can't wait to download a position paper. That sounds amazing. How many hours of reading will I have to do? Well, the great news is this is not intended to be either an exhaustive or exhausting document. It's just 2 pages long. It's a very high-level framework that we worked diligently on to sort of outline what we think about artificial intelligence. Travis, did you want to share a little bit about kind of the process of how we landed where we are today?
Yeah, so what we did is our task force met together over the course of a few months, collating different resources, researching what were the industry standards for AI ethics with you know, the very large companies like Google or Meta or something like that. Also what was happening in the Bible translation space itself, and then looking for thought leaders, we could call them, within the church who had dedicated time and research to this. And we took all of those resources, brought them together, and then discussed ourselves what we thought our policy should be here at WA to create this framework.
Yeah. The other thing that was going on at the same time that I found useful is we were already diving into the research ourselves. We were already testing out different things, and we were already beginning to see places where AI was successful as well as places that AI really wasn't successful.
Yeah.
So one of those areas that we dove into was an early experiment was, hey, can we create a chatbot or a co-pilot or an assistant that could help Bible translators to translate Scripture? You guys want to talk a little bit about what our results were with that?
Well, so one of the obvious issues is accuracy. So these models are not persons with souls, so the data that they're trained on, they're only as good as that data. And so ensuring that they're accurate and giving accurate results can be really challenging. We use a technique called retrieval augmented generation, or RAG for short, which is a way of providing guardrails, basically giving it a database and telling it you're only allowed to draw information from this database that we've created, which in our case were Bible translations. And it was still challenging. I think it's not only challenging for us, but challenging for everybody involved. Yep. Even the largest companies in the world have the same challenge, ensuring accuracy in particular.
Yeah, we found that with the general purpose reasoning models that you'd be familiar with, like ChatGPT or others, kind of the state-of-the-art models, you can try to constrain the results using retrieval augmented generation, or RAG as we call it. So in our case, really, the use case is we wanted to constrain the answers to not getting into, for instance, theological issues. There's many theological and doctrinal issues that church denominations disagree on. And frankly, all of those things are outside of Bible translation. The task of Bible translation is to be faithful to the text and not to inject your own theological positions. But we could not get a chatbot to avoid giving its opinion about theological positions. And so consequently, what we learned in that was some of the things that you'll see reflected in the position paper. We want to be very careful about relying on a chatbot model to put in front of translators who may innocently ask a question about, well, what is this about baptism, where it's going to skew one way or another, and it's going to actually end up steering their Bible translation in a way that could actually be harmful.
Yeah.
We had some great examples of sort of weird questions, Travis. Do you remember any of those?
One of the questions we would ask models was did Peter have a wife?
Right.
Does the New Testament say that Peter had a wife?
Right.
And so you get different results from different models. The Bible readers will know that Peter has a mother-in-law in the New Testament, and so we're asking the model to draw out those implications. Does he have a wife if he has a mother-in-law? And so it was interesting to see the different results we would get from that.
Yeah, one of my favorites that you kept testing it with was, who was Paul married to?
Yeah.
And it would answer.
Yeah, it would say Paul was married to Linda McCartney, because most of the data thought Paul was Paul McCartney, not the Apostle Paul.
Right.
But that's an example where RAG came in, because once we constrained it to be looking at a lot of the documents internally and verifying its answers there, suddenly Paul McCartney went away because it realized we're talking about Paul from the Bible only.
Yeah, so its context wasn't the whole internet anymore. It was just the context we gave it, and that's all RAG does.
Yeah. Yeah, and it showed some fruit, but it never got to a place where we felt confident that we would want to tell a group of translators, like, you can use this carte blanche, it's totally fine, any answer you get from here is going to be, an augmentation to your Bible translation process. We didn't get there. So let's jump back to the document, and let's get kind of into what's in there. We have some introductory material here around our core values and industry standards for AI ethics. I think what we want to jump down to is our Bible translation standards. I'm going to jump past kind of the overview here. We're going to jump into where the stakeholders might apply these core values in the following ways. So let's talk through this. Transparency, I think, is probably key to all of us, right? And this is important. And really, transparency is saying, we're going to do the kinds of things we're doing right now. We're going to talk about how WA uses AI. We're going to be open and honest about that. Where do you guys land on that stuff?
Yeah, I think that it is so important to our partners as well. When we have conversations about AI, a lot of us are starting with the idea that it's a black box, but when we start talking about how we do it behind the scenes, we start able to surface those areas where we have confidence and don't have confidence, and that allows that relationship to grow a little bit stronger in terms of recommendations and getting that feedback.
Yeah.
Really appreciated that. Yeah.
Especially as these AI systems become more sophisticated, it's more and more difficult to tell the difference between what's been done by a human and what's been done by a machine. And I think that's something a lot of Christians have raised the alarm about, to say, like, it's important to know that there's a soul on the other side of those words or images, and it's important to know whether a machine has been used to help create some of that material. That's only going to become increasingly frequent as we interact with more and more machine-generated material from AI. And so transparency is a really key value.
Yeah, so you see three statements there. One, we talk about stating it publicly. That's why this document's on our website. Marketing is 100% informing donors about the role of AI. I had the privilege of being at one of our fundraising events over the weekend and got to make some brief comments to the crowd who was there about the way that we're using AI. Those were received very positively. And then also, we really want to ask field partners about how they're using AI. You know, anybody that we're partnering with on the field, we want to know what they're doing, because we want to make sure that they are aligned with the things that we're concerned about. So the second one here, we've got some comments on accuracy. And I think the number one comment here is that it should not replace human decision making in translation.
Yeah.
You know, Wycliffe Associates has the privilege and the honor of being on the forefront of church-owned Bible translation. There's no faster way to take away church ownership than to hand it off to either ChatGPT or Mistral or Claude or anybody, you know, any of these other AI systems. As good as they are for so many things, they are not, as you said earlier, it's not a person. It has no soul. Can the Holy Spirit influence those things? Sure. But I think we're going to rely on organic intelligence in the Bible translation area. That does not mean that we're not using AI. We 100%, I mean, we're living in AI, doing experiments and looking for great ways that it can help augment the task of Bible translation. But it's so key that we keep humans in the driver's seat.
Yeah, there's basically no circumstance in which AI-generated materials should not be checked by a human under any circumstances.
Right.
And I think that's a pretty general policy that everyone has.
Yeah.
And I think even in some of the following demos that we'll see later on in upcoming showcases, you'll see that all of our output is meant for the human to verify, validate, and correct before there's any output that can come from that process. It 100% relies on somebody checking that and approving it.
Yeah. Yeah, the second point on there is that we advise our partners not to rely on AI-drafted content in low-resource languages. So what's a low-resource language, Travis?
This is a language for which we don't have a lot of data to train these models on. So there's low and zero resource languages. Those are the sort of the largest and most difficult problem in current AI technologies.
Yeah.
If you don't have data, you can't do anything. It's like gas. And so if there's no gas, the car's not going anywhere.
That's right. Yeah, you're going to get not good results or no results. The other thing is that we want to avoid using general purpose reasoning models for drafting content. So ChatGPT is great. You ask it a question, it gives you an answer and things like that. And it actually is quite good at translating between majority world languages. It's not good at all at translating into smaller languages, these low resource languages. We strongly recommend that if you are going to engage any kind of an AI or machine learning translation, that you use one that is specifically designed for translation. The primary one we're using is No Language Left Behind by Meta.
Yeah, that's the cutting edge in artificial intelligence. Meta or Facebook, they have no language left behind. I don't know off the top of my head how many languages are represented, but it's 10 times the order of magnitude what you find in other models, because it's dedicated only to representing those languages for translation, which is really cool.
Yeah, you can't use NLLB to ask general purpose questions. That's not how it works. In fact, I don't know that you can even really use NLLB without running it yourself the way that we do. I mean, it is what drives translation on Facebook and lots of other, Meta properties, but it's not a thing that you can just like go to that website and ask it, hey, recommend a nice place to stay in Amsterdam or whatever. It doesn't work that way. Yeah, so let's jump down to security. This is one that I think is, on a lot of people's minds. What's the security around AI? So what's our recommendation there, Glenn?
You asked me to read that? I can't read that from here.
Or Travis. Or me. Smooth handoff.
Our heart for church-owned AI is that we wouldn't expose our field partners to risk, that AI would only be used to help them. And so even if we had a power at our disposal that could potentially expose them to risk, we would just choose to not use it. for that reason.
Yeah. The other place that it's going to be a factor that obviously we're very concerned about would be like donor data and other kinds of business system data. So we will be writing policies for the finance team, for instance, about how and where they can engage AI systems. 100%, I want everybody to hear and know there is no circumstance where we're going to just take donor data and pop it in ChatGPT for any kind of analysis or any other thing. Like that's 100% forbidden and not allowed. We are not going to just randomly be sticking our finance data or God forbid our donor data into any of these like open commercial models. We may use them for certain things where it's tailor-made for that, it's licensed, it's locked down, we have assurances and security around, we know like, hey, this can help us like with this aspect of our financial reporting or something like that. But that will be done very, very carefully and diligently. Let's talk a little bit about dignity because this fits into that same church ownership idea. So do you want to say a little bit there, Travis, on that?
This is one of the ways in which the church-owned philosophy of Bible translation pairs perfectly with the cutting edge in AI ethics, is that there's a huge focus on using these technologies to dignify those who use them. And that's something obviously that's very close to our hearts, and that we want to empower the church, the local church, in the nations. And so we want to use these technologies to do that. In no sense should these technologies be used to supplant their autonomy. They have full control over their process. They are the decision makers in the room, and we're just simply offering resources and tools to help them.
That's right. Yeah, and I like the second point as well because the second point talks about the need to assist field partners. It's very likely that WA's team may have more experience in this area and may have done more work. So part of the reason that we formed the AI task force is we saw this huge wave, this huge incoming wave of really positive tools that can impact Bible translation. So we engaged it a year ago. We put 12 people on our task force and have really, really dug into this. These things are important. So it's likely that we may be ahead of certain field partners who are just beginning to wonder and think about AI. So we want to be available as a resource and to help our partners think through the implications of choices that they may make in terms of the Bible translation process.
And it's happened. We've had field partners come to us and say, we want to use ChatGPT for our translation. And we were born for such a time as this, so we can come to them and say, please don't.
Yeah.
And here's why, and here's what we've been building and working on, the research we've been doing that we think could help you in other areas that were maybe unexpected.
Yeah, exactly. Let's talk a little bit about fidelity here. We are very interested in prioritizing products that address gaps in mission-critical efforts. Whether this be field-facing, whether this be in the refinement process or in the checking process, or whether it's just our business systems. The finance team has lots of work to do, and if there are ways that we can use technology to help them get their bank reconciliations done sooner and more accurately, we're 100% going to jump on that. Any final thoughts, guys, as we kind of wrap up here?
I think there's a lot of really exciting opportunities with how AI systems are developing. The technology is changing by the week. The Quinn model just came out, I think, last week. There's a new one. So there's going to continue to be developments, but developing a broad framework is really important so that we can think through how to implement how we can implement our ethical values and our Christian values in these in the application of these developing technologies.
Yeah, I think before we started the recording, two things we were talking about as sort of first principles. Number one, church ownership, never supplanting church ownership. And number two being, we want to take advantage of every tool that's out there. Like if it can help, we 100% want to use it. And we don't want to automatically close ourselves off from something because we either don't understand it or we just are not able to engage with it and really figure out how it can help. So this is our attempt to do that. Guys, I'm really excited about the future. Even in this last year as we've worked on AI, we've seen revolutionary moves ahead. It's been I think, really, frankly, shocking. I've worked in technology for a long time, and I've not seen this level of change and improvement this quickly. How's it been for you all?
So last week I was at the Missional AI conference where Christian leaders gather basically from all over the globe to talk about how they're using AI not only in Bible translation and ministry and missions, but also in industry as well. And somebody from No Language Left Behind came and spoke, which was interesting.
Yeah.
The increased representation of the very languages that we want to translate the Bible into by No Language Left Behind is really exciting. The developing tools and technology is really exciting. So there's a lot to look forward to.
And specifically, AI is a little bit different for us. Normally, I would say that we work with a lot of other departments who come to us with requests and planned events, and it's always fun fulfilling those and seeing that be able to go to the field. But this is through the AI task force, we've actually been able to generate, I think, some new ideas from scratch, and we're at the point. Hopefully, we'll be revealing some of those details in upcoming software showcases where we're wanting to get some field testing. And so we're reaching out to some of our partners internally and externally to get that feedback and to see they're just light up like, oh, it could do that? Wow, that just totally will save me dozens of hours in prep for an event.
Yeah.
It's just wonderful to be on that end of the spectrum, starting out with that area. And it's thanks to all of the AI research, but there's been a lot of no's before we got to some yeses. So.
Yeah, we've had a few stinkers, and that's okay. That's definitely part of the process. So guys, it's been really fun to talk about this. I'm very excited about putting a couple more of these in the can this week as we've got some great things to show off. If you've made it this far in the video, we appreciate it. No bullet time this time because this is a little bit of a shorter video. If you think about it, please like and subscribe. Feel free to share this with your friends. And again, go to BibleInEveryLanguage.org and check out the artificial intelligence page on that site. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.